All right, Jay.
Didn't realize it was March.
All right, let's call the meeting to order. Roll call, please, Mark.
Genslinger,
Here.
Havlet, Gurza, Larson,
Here.
Osterloo,
Here.
Schmitz,
Here.
Sonny,
Here.
Dosher. We have a quorum.
Thank you. The agenda has been provided to us. Is there any conflicts of interest that any of you see that you may have to?
I'll abstain from number 8.
I'll abstain from number 10.
All right. Given that information, let's go on to the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to it? If not, I am ready for motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the agenda be approved as presented. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Did you get the second?
Yep, I got the second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Next item, minutes of the April 8th meeting were provided in the packet of information. Any additions or corrections to those minutes?
Move to approve. Second.
Moved and seconded that the minutes be approved as presented. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign, motion carries. Next meeting should be May 13th.
Set the date.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the date be set. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, assume you're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign, motion carries. First item on the agenda is a variance permit for Adam Cook. Adam has applied for a variance permit for a side yard setback of 3 foot versus 8 to build a 26-foot wide by 68-foot deep attached garage located at 1212 Kelly Drive, legally described as Lot 1, except the west 100 feet. Country Living Estates in the northeast quarter of Section 14, T103 North, Range 60 West of the 5th parallel meridian, Davidson County, South Dakota. Said real property is zoned urban development. Mark, talk to us a little bit about this rascal.
Notice was sent out to the neighbors, published in the paper, signposted. There was one letter returned in favor of the project. Adam actually was approved for this back in 2020, but due to COVID-19 and the lumber prices, they never did build the garage, so the 2-year window for using their variance has expired. Since then, they made 2 modifications to their plan. Instead of a 60-foot, they're going to go 68-foot deep, and then they're going to pull the garage 12 feet instead of the original 8 feet.
Okay.
His lot out there, he doesn't have much width on either side of his property there. He's tried to purchase the property from the neighbors to the west, but they haven't sold, won't sell it to him. So he's proposing a garage so you can do a single door, pull vehicles in and pull off to the side a little bit, but then also have storage for his boat and some other equipment out in the country there. He is not here. He's fishing right now.
Okay.
That's more important.
Any questions? Anybody out there in the audience got any comments on what we're about to act on? Hearing none, I guess we're ready for motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the variance be approved. And I guess because it was okay in 2020, probably okay in 2024. Anybody got any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Variance permit, Michael and Elena Cruz. They have applied for a variance permit for a combination of attached and detached accessory buildings of 2,700 square feet, 716 square feet versus 2,000 square feet to build a new detached accessory building of 2,040 square feet located at 1020 Chalkstone Drive, Legally described as Lot 1, Block 1, North Ridge Park, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota. The said real property is zoned R1 Single Family.
Yeah. Notices were sent out to the neighbors, published in the paper, a sign was posted. There were 4 letters, there were technically 5 sent back. The first one from Bill Siebert, he just had questions about it. And with the neighborhood covenants, the city does not have anything to do with covenants out there. But he talked to the applicants after the fact, and he sent an email, so there were technically 5 responses, but really it was from 4 people. And he has no concerns or questions about the project anymore. Applicant would like to build a garage or a shed, front portion, which would be a garage area. The middle portion would be kind of a shop, and then the back portion would be more of a utility shed type area for mower and things like that. Applicants are here if you have any questions. They did say that if this project is approved, they plan to re-side the house and the garage with the same siding.
Okay. Applicant, do you have any more comments to us, for us?
No, the only thing I'll say is Brad and Stacy Storm, who live next to us, whose property would be adjacent to, I talked to him last night. He asked if we would consider moving it back 10 more feet, so instead of 25 feet from the street, make it 35 feet. We have no problem doing that, so that's what we'll do. He felt it would give him better visualization of the street as he's pulling out of his driveway.
Okay.
That was his only concern.
City folks, any problem with that?
No, meet setbacks, and they want to appease their neighbors to help with it.
As long as they haven't dug the foundations, I guess they're good to go, huh? All right, what's your pleasure, folks?
Mark, you made a reference to he, are you referring to Bill Siebert?
Yeah, Bill Siebert,
Yeah.
yep. Or, sorry, what was your question?
No, when you were talking about the Sieberts,
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yep, Bill Siebert, yep.
so everything's cool there?
Yep,
Yep. Yeah, there was an email in that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there are covenants in the,
We don't have any control over the covenant, so we can't tell them
Yep.
yes or no to
The
those
cov-
issues.
Yeah, the covenants, my understanding was back in, I think it was the 60s or so, they created the covenants in that neighborhood. City doesn't have any authority over covenants at all, but also I do not believe that they've been meeting their board requirements to keep the covenants going either. So that would be a civil matter with them in their neighborhood for that.
We have not. We did meet with Bill, and the covenants don't give any indication of how large the building can be, but they want it to look like the house, so it's not, so you don't put up a pole barn type building. So that's why we're going to re-side the house as well, match.
Okay? Thank you for that information. Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the variance be approved as requested with the modifications that have recently been discussed.
Well, and that's not part of the variance portion at all, so.
That's not part of the variance
No,
we have
portion at
no-
all, so
No bearing.
so be it. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye. Oh, no, we got to roll call this, don't we?
Yep. Kinslinger,
abstain?
Osterloop,
Yes.
Schmitz,
Yes.
Sonny,
Yes.
Larson.
Yep.
Motion carried.
All right, next item. Variance permit for Chuck Stevenson. He's applied for a variance for a combination attached and detached accessory building of 4,216 square feet versus 2,000 square feet to build a new detached accessory building of 3,312 square feet located at 114 South Harmon Drive, legally described as lots 4 and 5A of Block 3, and that portion of vacated Indian Head Drive, all in Indian Head Second Edition, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota. The said real property is zoned RL, Lake Residential District. Mark, your turn.
Yep. Notice was sent out to the neighbors, published in the paper, signed, posted. There was one letter returned in favor of this. The applicant is looking to put a new shed that's 40 by 56 up, which would run east-west. A new shed that runs 20 by 32 going north-south, abutting towards it. And then on the north side of the first shed would be a lean-to that would attach to it. So it's 3 buildings kind of, but one structure in a sense, using shared walls. He stated that he'd use probably a 2-tone metal for out at this location, if not maybe a brick mold on the front side of it, dressed up possibly with a cupola on top of it as well. Applicant's here if you have any questions for him at all.
Applicant, do you have any comments for us?
Yeah, come up here.
My name is Chuck Stevenson, live at 114 South Harmon Drive. I have 2 other sheds. Basically, I'm downsizing is what I'm trying to do. I got 1 shed out to Sam Street, and I got 1 shed on the back side of South Harmon Drive. There's a development back there where some sheds have been built along South Harmon Drive. There's 4 sheds up front, and there's 5 sheds out back behind, in the loop behind there. Basically, I just want to sell the 2 sheds I have and build one right on my property.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Stevenson? Hearing none. Anybody from that's sitting in the audience have any comments or questions to ask? All right, folks, we're ready for a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the variance be approved as presented. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. A hearing and action on establishing the boundaries and approval of the project plan for tax increment financing district number 34. And I think we've looked at this before, haven't we?
Well, he looked at one similar to this 33, which was just approved, recommended for approval at planning commission, approved at council. This kind of follows the same. It was noticed in the paper for this. Austin LLC would be doing this. It's the Make It Mine area. Abra Auto would be moving up to this location as well. Just like previous times, there'd be 2 different motions for this after going through it. It'd be a motion to approve setting the boundary and then the recommendation to council for that. So there's 2 different ones. Justin, do you want to kind of give?
Tell us a little more about it, Justin.
Yep, I can walk you through a little bit here too. So as Mark said, this would be expansion and relocation of a business, very similar to TIF 33 that was just approved, which was also with Austin LLC. There was recently some replatting done in this area to make it more conducive to setting the boundaries for this district. Staff did review the project plan, revised that with the applicant. It does appear to meet all of our local TIF requirements as well as the state statutes. Similar to past TIFs, it's a grant pass-through type TIF. There won't be any debt against the city. The city will just pass the increment on to the developer as it comes in. Mark, if you want to scroll down, project costs were provided. I think you'll see here again that the project costs did exceed the amount of the TIF request, and the reason for the difference there is the TIF request is limited by what the TIF is projected to generate. So if it generated more increment, there would be more project costs that it could potentially cover, but it's only going to generate so much, and that's what dictates that TIF request amount. And I think with that, applicants are here if they want to discuss any of the other details. And if not, we can open it up to questions.
Applicants? Further comments or questions? The speakers for you. Anybody else in the audience that has any questions or comments? The speaker's ready. Lots of difference.
Pretty quiet day.
Yeah, it is. Well, and that, looking at that piece of property there, I think the old Armour Creamery at one time occupied that property, and I think they had an egg breaking plant there at one time, many years ago. Sure changed.
Well, let's set the boundary. I'll move to set the boundary.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the boundary should be set as described. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. Mark, your turn for roll call, please.
Enslinger,
Yes.
Osterloo,
Yes.
Schmitz,
Yes.
Sonny,
Abstain?
Larson,
Yes.
boundary set.
And the next one is approval of the project plan.
And recommend approval of TIF District number 34.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the project plan and approval of TIF Financing District number 34 be approved. Discussion on the motion. Peanut Gallery, anything from you guys? All right. Your turn, Mark.
Osterloo,
Yes.
Schmitz,
Yes.
Sonny,
Abstain?
Enslinger,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
motion carried.
Next item, plat of lots 5A and 5B, a subdivision of Amico Irregular Tract in the north 12 of the southeast quarter, and I'm assuming that's north 12 of something, I don't know what. I hope that Register of Deeds understands that.
North half.
Oh, north half, somebody forgot to put all right, that makes sense. I read that when I did my review, and I couldn't figure out what North 12 was. That's why I brought it up. It's north 1/2
My apologies.
of the southeast quarter of Section 27, Township 103 North, Range 60, west of the 5th parallel meridian, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota, as requested by 8 West LLC. Talk to us on that one too, Mark.
Yep. So applicant is looking to plat their ground, pretty much taking the hotel and separating the campground that's behind it. There is an access easement, 25-foot access easement that goes from the easements that's already available across their land into this location. It's highway business, so front yard setback, it meets that, and it's 0 foot for all the rest of them. So going up against, right next to the buildings, that's 0 foot setback there. You will notice on the first page of the plat, there is an error with having the extra 25 access easement across right here. There's nothing right there. It's just an extra wording on there. I do have an updated version that has that without it on there.
Okay?
Paul Kipke is here, can answer any questions that you may have since he's been dealing with the applicant on this application.
Questions? Paul, you want to add anything? Has he got it covered pretty well? Appears to.
I sure hope so.
Okay. No questions? We're ready for a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded that a plat of lots 5A and 5B, a subdivision of Amico Irregular Tract in the north half of the southeast quarter of Section 27, Township 103 North, Range 60 west of the 5th parallel meridian, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota, as requested, be approved. Is there discussion on that motion? Hearing none? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Discussion item only. 1044, similar uses, shipping container storage units.
We had an individual in town bring up that they would like to use shipping containers for renting out for storage units and placing them on their property where self-storage units would be a conditional use or a permitted use. In discussions among staff, we don't feel that it really fits the self-storage facility because it's a group of buildings consisting of individual self-contained units, whereas these would not be considered buildings themselves. As you know, there's many different sizes of shipping containers. The ones that this gentleman was talking about were going to be 8 foot wide by 40 feet long by about 7 feet tall, so roughly 320 square feet. We've also got the ones that are 8 by 20, so that's 160 square feet. So that wouldn't require a building permit because it'd be an accessory building, but it's under the 200 square feet. But the ones that he's talking about would be over. So it's trying to figure out, does it fit within another use, or do we need to create a new verbiage for it? The ones that we came up with were the outside commercial storage, which is the short-term or long-term leasing of parking for storage of motor vehicles, equipment, and personal items outside. These could be considered equipment, I guess, and you're leasing out that equipment to have somebody else store their stuff in that piece of equipment. Outside storage is the keeping in an unroofed area for any goods, junk, material, or merchandise in the same place for more than 1 month. This one, though, you're not leasing out at all. It's supposed to be really your own stuff and not any rental property or storage of something like that.
Well, it says unroofed, and, the storage units technically have a roof, right?
Sure.
So,
The other issue that could fall with this is a lot of our self-service storage facilities are in highway business, and highway business does not have permitted or conditional use for outside commercial storage. And we talked about outside commercial storage being incorporated into highway business. And it's been discussed, we don't want to do that because of all the different locations around town that we have that already in. So it could be, right on the bypass could have that as well, or even Highland, or not the Highland Mall, but the North Mall, when that was all being discussed for that being turned over to the self-service storage units and then possibly in the back. So to me, the location doesn't fit within highway business. It should maybe be more TWC to have something like that. So I guess if it were to be outside commercial storage, that does fit within TWC zoning jurisdiction or regulations. But I guess the number one thing would be discussion as to what you think that those shipping containers should be classified as, or do we need a separate definition for them? And then put them into the codes as you so see fit.
Well, and we already see them sitting alongside of commercial buildings. They're there already. The other thing that many years ago was discussed at planners conference is what about housing units? Making them into housing units.
Yeah, as long as they could meet the building definition, building code of a dwelling by doing all your insulation and everything. Yeah, you could, as long as they meet the requirements of.
And Lawrence County has several of them already built out there. Stacked on one to the other, and they don't look that bad either, the ones that I've looked at.
Right.
I think if you do it right and it's designed and it's done properly, they look all right. My concern would be they're just stacked up, randomly piled in a yard. They're rusting out, they're not kept up, and the grass is 2 feet tall around them. I don't really want to see that in town either, so. But how do you allow one and not the other?
Right, and this applicant has a good reputation for keeping his stuff clean and would put it on concrete and maintain it very well, but that's this applicant and not the next one.
Yeah,
So,
and bolt it down so the window would take it over towards Reinhardt someplace.
so,
I don't know.
It seems to me it needs to have its own definition so that we can more closely regulate it.
Yep, I think so too. So, talk with if you would, Mark, with Justin and the guys, the engineering staff too, because that could be a drainage issue.
well, and that's the second phase issue with something like this is you start putting all these out on a piece of ground, now you start need to have a retention, storm retention plan, because now you're, putting
Hard surface,
hard
maybe
surface
over that.
everything.
Yep.
Minimum threshold.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, if they're the 8x20s, they're 160 square feet, we don't do a building permit. Now, would we building permit these things, so either, even if it's the 320 square foot ones?
But if
Because,
you put four of them next to each other, then all of a sudden you're over your limit. And I would consider it one big storage unit, not four little sheds underneath your threshold.
Well, and, you know, what should we do? We haven't talked about ever and ever had any complaints on, like what Walmart does with theirs. A lot of times you'll see one sitting there for 6 months and pretty soon there's another different one sitting there for 6 months. So are they storage or are they actual, you know?
but to me, that would be different from what this situation would be, because this would be renting them out for someone to use and store something in, whereas
Right.
that, it's for their business.
It's
right?
for their business.
If it's contiguous to the business line, it's just a piece of equipment on the ground. But if you put 8 of them together on a residential lot and they don't meet the separation distance for a separate building, then you should count them all as one.
Right.
Yeah.
But all these concerns are, all of them are, you know, they're gonna rust out, they're gonna be painted.
Well, and they're throwaway. They're coming from who knows where to here.
Some of the stores rotate inventory in and out, they load the whole thing up, they take inventory somewhere else down south, they bring one back, and
Yep. It's a different deal. And I think that's one of the reasons we've never had the issue.
at other municipality meetings, you know, municipal league or planning and zoning, I think if the issue's starting to come up more and more. So I suppose that someday Mark's gonna have to address it, but.
Watertown does allow them at theirs, but I haven't found out what their zoning is or what they're classifying it underneath as.
Well, why don't you do a little snooping and bring us back some information, Mark? Dustin, you too.
You got anything to add to it?
I don't think a whole lot at this point. I mean, I think you can see from the definitions up there why staff was looking for a little bit of guidance on this, because, you know, what we've been talking about doesn't really fit into any of those categories very cleanly. So I think by coming up with a separate definition, that should help things. And then once you've got that definition, you can start talking about where should these
Where?
things really be going.
And
So-
how?
Yeah, there's a trend, they're using them for residential homes, and like I said, if they're designed right, and they're footed right, and they're insulated right, then you can build a house out of a metal wall if you want, insulated, I'm not saying you can't,
Yeah?
prefab.
All right. Do some research, see what other communities are doing, come up with a definition form and bring it back to see if that's what we want to add into our ordinance with revision of that, and then look at zoning location for it as well.
I think that's a good idea, and John, you keep in contact with, you know, the few folks that you know.
It gets bounced around, I've had a couple emails, you know, there'll be 20 or 30 emails with a bunch of people CC'd on it from one of the building officials from Watertown, might throw it out there, and nobody comments on it. But really, nobody wants to dig their teeth in it yet either. They're like, eh.
Well, and we're not a point where a lot of those shipping containers show up either, you know?
Well, you'll see one nice picture where somebody's done a really immaculate job on it.
Right.
Not all of them look that way.
Right?
I know they want to spend their money to make them look that way.
Yeah.
They set it down, it looks like a big mess.
Yeah.
As far as trends go, South Dakota tends to be 5-10 years behind everybody else.
That's good.
As it
That's
works
good
its way to the
business.
Midwest, so we should have some case history there to look up and say, okay, these guys are doing this. Yeah, somewhere south.
But it's something we need to be aware of, and I think the direction that I feel we're sending you, Mark, is probably the best direction.
Yep.
So the only difference would be that this is an on-site storage application versus a leased space,
No,
a normal storage facility.
since you're renting it out to somebody to store their stuff, and if that's, I think, where the difference comes to it. If one of the major contractors in town wants to put this next to one of these next to their building and store conduit or whatever in there, I think that, like John said, it goes with the business
It
itself.
goes with the business itself.
And there was discussion about, well, just like pods, people rent pods out. Well, pods are kind of transient, they come and go, they don't stay there the whole time. They drop 3 of them off front of a house, and they fill them up, and 3 months later, they're gone.
Yeah. And sometimes not even that long.
Well, those are the two concerns I have, is the permanence and the public access to them.
You got,
Why would you not, I mean, 8x40 is a pretty common size for storage. If a resident has a need for storage, then they lease that storage unit. They don't drop a train container in their yard and call it a shed.
you guys got enough direction to come back to us sometime?
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah, so a lot of the rebuttal that comes back on these emails from these building officials, residential is a no. They don't want residential areas. That's the consensus. But now commercial, that's a different story.
Well, and we have a couple of companies that build the nice little smaller wooden ones that, you know, I've got one in my backyard, keeps my lawnmower and everything out of the garage, and they're not that expensive, and
And the appeal is an 8x40 prefab shed's gonna run you 8 to 12 to 14,000. These are 20, some of these are coming to 2,400 to 4,000, these metal ones.
You just gotta get it there.
yep.
And like you said earlier, Jake, it's a good thing we don't have the rail yard that they've got them stacked up at or something like that right here in town. So we don't have
Exactly.
overabundance. Someone has to bring them in to begin with, so.
Yeah. And I know where there's a whole bunch of them sitting on a ship that's got half a bridge laid on.
Full of water.
All right, let's go on to the next item. Is there any other business to come before this body at this time? Seeing no one come to the podium, is there any public input? If you need to address the board on an item that was not on the agenda excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium, state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken at this time. Seeing no one come to the podium, we are adjourned.